When I courted her with code and letters, I was just a 20-year-old guy focused on academia and business. But after she leaked my thoughts to friends, I was bullied for months, facing mockery and betrayal. If they're ganging up on you, maybe you're the problem. How did love turn into this? Hello, just a heads up, this might be a long message. I hope it is acceptable, but I have been holding this in for so long and it has been weighing on me. I just need to let it out. I also apologize if there are any grammatical errors. English is not my first language and I am doing my best. How far can you go for someone? Before I met her, I was the kind of guy who only cared about academics and business because life forced me to be that way. I did not have much time for anything else. Parties, romance, going out with friends, those were never part of my plan. I was just your typical guy in the classroom, quiet, preferring to be alone and uninterested in hearsay. What mattered to me was academics and getting home to focus on my business. That was it. I only had a few interactions and a handful of friends with whom I could discuss personal matters, as I did not really enjoy sharing personal experiences. Sometimes my classmates would talk about adulting and try to learn about my hobbies, interests, or the life I was living, and honestly, I had no idea what to say or how to respond to those kinds of topics. My upbringing was not much different from anyone else's, but as a person, I guess that is where things were somewhat different. I never really enjoyed being around a lot of people, so I did not make many friends growing up. However, when I do make friends, I keep them close and check in on them because I know how it feels, and it can be sad sometimes, even for an introvert. I was not exactly the best at socializing, awkward, quiet, and unsure how to connect with people beyond surface-level conversations. But when it came to academics and business, that is where I felt confident. I actually started my own venture back in 7th grade and was already making a decent amount, around 50,000 pesos to 60,000 pesos monthly, which is adequate money to live a comfortable life here in my country. It was not just a hobby, it became part of how I survived, how I coped, and how I felt that I had control over something in my life. Of course, during all those years, I did not really care about money for myself. All I wanted was to live a comfortable and fulfilling life. That is why I let my parents handle the finances at home while I contributed most of what I earned. My father barely made enough to support the four of us, and my parents were drowning in debt. So for me, it was simple. If I could help, I would. I felt like I needed to repay them in some way. They were always supportive of my interests, even if they did not fully understand them. They never made me feel alone in pursuing what I wanted. The kind of love my parents showed me shaped the man I am today. It was not perfect, but it was enough to make me who I am now. I never got into vices, no parties, no wild nights. I created my own world and stayed there. I preferred deep conversations over small talk. My hobbies, they might seem strange to most people, but I loved collecting toys, tinkering with technology, and geeking out over random things that made me feel alive. Fast forward, everything shifted when I met her during my second year of college. She is female, 19 years old, and I am male, 20 years old. When she came into the picture, I did not know what I was feeling. I did not even recognize it as love. But there was something different, something unfamiliar, an emotion I had never experienced before. It was not loud, it was not overwhelming, but it was there, quietly making space in my heart. For someone like me, who has always been focused, reserved, and emotionally guarded, that feeling was both terrifying and beautiful. But this time my heart won over my mind. Despite all the hesitations and all the what-ifs running through my head, I decided to send her a message because it became too unbearable. It was a simple message, nothing out of the ordinary, just a casual hi, but somehow that small act felt like a huge leap. I did not know what would happen next. All I knew was that I wanted to get to know her better, and for once I was willing to step out of my comfort zone to make that happen. Coincidentally, she was part of my group for an activity, so I had the perfect excuse to reach out as well. Deep down, I knew it was not just about the task I was about to assign her. I genuinely wanted to talk to her. I gave her the task she needed to complete for the group activity and helped her with it too, and when it was finished, I also asked if she could help me with mine in return. The truth is, I could have easily done it all by myself. But I did not want it to end there. I wanted to prolong it a little longer, just to keep the conversation going, to have a reason to remain connected. For the record, she was just like me, an academic achiever, so it was not surprising that I started falling for her. My intuition about her was correct. She had that rare combination of quiet strength, intellect, and grace. She was not trying to impress anyone, she was just herself, and somehow that was enough. She possessed the qualities I imagined in a woman: reserved, focused, someone with depth who could engage with me in deep conversations. But there was something more, something I could not explain. She was unlike anyone I had ever known. Throughout those months, we gradually built a strong and steady foundation. We got to know each other deeply, not just through sweet words, but also through presence, patience, and other shared experiences. Eventually, we both decided to attempt entering into a romantic relationship. But she told me up front that we could not be official for 2 years, despite most of her family members being supportive of me. And honestly, that was fine with me. I never cared much about labels anyway. What mattered was the way we cared for each other, and to me, that was more than enough. My trust in her was absolute. Because after all, you should not be in a relationship if all you ever do is doubt your partner. That is not love, just pure manipulation or a sense of accomplishment. She was not a trophy for me. I was not just someone to her, I was her best friend. And to me, she meant everything. It was all perfect. We studied together, played games, and created a software application consisting of facts for ourselves. The more we learned about each other, the more rewarding it felt. My way of courting her was not the typical flowers or grand gestures. I expressed my feelings through letters and something a bit more unique. I created a custom software game just for her. She had to navigate through the game and complete it, and at the end, similar to what you see in TikTok videos, a question would pop up that asked, "Is it okay if I court you?" If she answered either yes or no, her response would be automatically sent to me. It was cheesy and nerdy, but it was entirely from the heart. That game, those letters, they were all part of how I tried to show her that I was not just serious. I went all in for her, out of my comfort zone, all because I loved her. With her, my life started to improve. I began saving and planning for the future in every aspect. I became better each day. Fast forward again, around 6 months later, things started to go downhill. It began with a simple argument between the two of us, nothing explosive, but somehow her friends, who were also my classmates, turned it into something bigger than it was. I was never really close with her group, but I introduced her to mine and she was welcomed with open arms. The same could not be said for her friends toward me. There was always tension, a quiet dislike rooted in jealousy or perhaps just misplaced interest. Our argument started when I told her that she needed to learn to say no. People would constantly ask things of her, favors, notes, group work, and she could not bring herself to decline even if it meant exhausting herself. And I hated seeing her like that. She complained to me about how tired she was and how it was too much for her. So sometimes I helped her finish those tasks she received from her friends, but I knew it was unhealthy. I also advised her to stop sharing her drinks with people out of concern for her health. I did not initially find it problematic, but I grew jealous because there was almost no distinction between her friends and me. When I tried to spend quality time with her, just the two of us, her friends always came first, and almost every time it would end up getting canceled, or the atmosphere would not feel the same anymore when I wanted solo time with her. Anyway, these were the same individuals who would sit next to her during exams just to copy answer, something I would never do because I respected her effort and time. It would also hurt my ego. I have standards, and copying someone else's work or answers would be so shameful for me. After a while, I stopped interacting with her friends, 7 people, upon discovering that they were just waiting for us to break up and were talking negatively about me behind my back despite everything I had done for them. I had provided snacks, treats, and printed handouts almost daily and helped without asking for anything in return, but instead of recognizing my kindness, they twisted it. I abruptly stopped everything afterward. To them, I seemed to be merely a source of support. I was not treated this way during all my high school years, but it began once I reached college. I opened up to her in full paragraphs, trying to express how I felt, what I was observing, and how I thought her friends were manipulating her. I just wanted her to be treated the way she deserved, with genuine friendship, not out of convenience. Then she herself showed those messages to her friend group. The exact words I had written meant solely for her. After that, everything spiraled. She admitted she was frightened of losing her friends and that she knew she could be easily manipulated. Yet even then, her anger toward me just intensified. She would not talk to me, she completely shut me out. I tried to repair things, gave her space, maintained my distance, and told her I would be there when she was ready to talk. During this period, I still sent her letters and emails to show that I cared and that I never stopped thinking about her. After she leaked our conversation, everything transformed into a nightmare. For the next 3 months, I was verbally harassed and bullied. It did not matter which room, subject, or lab I was in, they would whisper, laugh, throw comments, and mock me as if I were a joke. It slowly destroyed me mentally. I began taking absences because I could not bear being in that environment any longer. But even when I was not around, they did not stop. They would still gather and talk about me. And the worst part, the very person I trusted the most, my best friend, female, 19 years old, joined them. She kept leaking the new messages I sent privately, adding fuel to the fire. I would not find out until a day later when someone who had a friend inside that group would tell me what was happening. That individual confided in my friend, expressing that he felt terrible that those private messages should have remained solely between us. But instead, they became ammunition for public ridicule. I was bullied for 3 months straight and I was never the same again. I became traumatized. I felt betrayed. I felt exposed. My best friend, someone I had stood up for and believed would support me, participated in tearing me down, perhaps to gain their approval or to elevate her own status. I tried to fight back correctly. I reported everything to the school, shared the emotional trauma I was enduring, and begged for them to take action. But nothing was done. Instead, I was called to the office, and what the counselor said broke me. If they were ganging up on you, maybe it is because you are the problem. That moment crushed me. The institution, the person I loved most and envisioned my life with, after all that I had given the effort, the love, and the patience turned me into a villain in a story I never wanted to be part of. Eventually, I dropped out of college. The last straw came when they embarrassed me in front of 50 people during a physical education practice. I cried so much on my way home because the only person I had trusted and loved took part in it. That broke me. 2 months later, I decided to change, not to move on but to redirect the pain. I took a different path, focused on my real goals, aimed to earn 6 digits a month, dove deeper into my hobbies, and worked hard to improve my physical appearance. But the truth, all of it was still for her. And somehow, by luck or a twist of fate, I made it happen except for getting physically better. I kept thinking that maybe someday she would look back and regret the choices she made. Not because I want her to hurt, but because I hope she realizes what we had was special. Anyway, with each passing month, I still send her emails about my smallest achievements and ask her about her life at school and outside, but I never receive any response. Just 2 days ago, I sent her some gifts through a friend I trusted. However, I was told she declined them all because her friends were telling her not to accept anything from me. They were influencing her, so I traveled back 4 times and just gave those gifts away. I do not really know if I should keep holding on. I imagined a life with her, one where we supported each other, grew together, and kept every promise we made. I meant every word I ever told her. I never make promises I do not intend to keep. I still love her and maybe a part of me always will. But how do you keep fighting for someone who no longer stands beside you? It hurts me to see it end like this. I still wish I could protect her from all the things she does not see. But I am starting to realize that I cannot keep shielding someone who will not let me in, who listens more to voices that bring her down rather than to the one who only ever wanted to lift her up. If you have any thoughts or advice, I would genuinely appreciate it, everyone. Thank you for reading. Story 2. My 30M boyfriend loves raves and adventures, while I'm a 23F homebody with crippling self-esteem. Why bother if you'll just reject my ideas? He said, leaving me questioning if our relationship can survive our opposites. Can I change to keep us together? Fake names if I even remember to mention them. I'm already aware that the age gap creates an immediate bias for some people, so here is the preface. Notwithstanding this, the relationship is safe and well respected. I believe our communication is better than the overall average one might expect in any relationship, considering the usual ups and downs. There are no significant problems aside from financial issues, but that is a subject I will address later. Regardless, I am fairly content, and according to him, he feels the same way. Throughout my life, I have struggled with debilitating self-esteem issues. These have originated from unknown causes, but the facial dysmorphia I have experienced is truly crippling. This is no exaggeration. I have refrained from traveling because I fear being in places where I do not belong. I have isolated myself for months. I do not take any pictures of myself, and I will not even video call my own family, as any reflection can provoke a physical reaction. Whether it leads to breaking down in my bathroom or a hazy memory of what happened afterwards, it occurs routinely. I have attempted rigorous exposure therapy and have spoken with therapists. The journey has been long, and I must admit that progress has not been steady. However, that does not mean I haven't put in the effort. My boyfriend used to be a heavy partier in his younger days. He enjoyed going out, raves, concerts, music, socializing with friends, everything one might expect. He is an outdoorsy guy and has embraced a nomadic, traveling lifestyle. In contrast, I prefer staying at home, spending time online, visiting the harbor late at night to admire the city lights, attending comedy shows, and when I can afford it or realistically can pretend to, classy dress-up nights in high-end venues. Naturally, we fell in love. Although our interests do not completely align, we have managed to make it work. The compromises were infrequent, yet we achieved it. Recently, he had to undertake a work trip to Japan for 2.5 months. He explored, took many photos, and sampled local cuisine, but he faced challenges. His coworkers behaved rudely and uncultured towards the local population, leading him to feel embarrassed and subsequently isolating himself to spend time with just one other person while there. I believe that during this experience, he developed a reluctance to explore Japan unless I was by his side. I suppose I was always on his mind. He expressed this to me after returning from his trip, and all I could muster was polite encouragement and agreement. I am not someone who gets overly enthusiastic. This does not mean that I wasn't excited, I simply did not know how to express my enthusiasm for him. We had a disagreement earlier tonight, which brings me to this post. During his time in Japan, we exchanged a multitude of ideas about things we could do together. Hiking, walking along the beach in the morning, concerts, comedy shows, everything imaginable. Unfortunately, I endured a severe self-esteem crisis 2 weeks before his return, and I have been unable to shake off the feeling ever since. I lack the motivation to do anything, nothing captivates my interest. I cherish my routine and do not wish to change it. While he was away, I hardly left the house, but I felt comforted by the notion that at least I was alone, and if I chose to go out, I could. Yet, the thought of updating him about my daily activities and providing constant updates became exhausting. Yes, I recognize how this sounds. And yes, I will eventually work with a therapist when my finances allow. His arguments are based on everything I attempt to dismiss, which include 1. I do not want to socialize with his friends. 2. I do not want to go out and be perceived or scrutinized. 3. Why make the effort if all the suggestions he offers will ultimately be rejected? The kicker is that I do wish to change. I understand that his reasoning is valid and that these are things I need to address. However, I want to emphasize that I have genuinely tried to engage in the activities he enjoys. I attended my first and likely last rave with him, purchased a glitzy outfit, mingled with his mutual friends. I hiked the largest mountain in our area with him on a whim one afternoon and completed the entire hike, and I have spent time with his friends on numerous occasions, both with him and alone. The conclusion is that I despise the experiences. However, I did not voice my complaints. I merely told him that such activities were not my scene, and if he wanted to go without me, that was perfectly fine. But I would not be accompanying him. Apparently, that is not an acceptable option. I have attempted repeatedly on my own time with different people to enjoy the activities he favors, raving, electronic dance music events, concerts, outdoor pursuits, but I cannot. I am incapable of finding enjoyment in them. It worsens my already crippling anxiety, and when I try not to dampen the mood and step away for some alone time or disappear, it becomes my fault. I genuinely want to be at home. There are moments when I feel inclined to go out to a bar or a party, but I am not certain. Maybe not with him. Yes, I do want to make this work, but I wish it did not involve such opposing interests. I need advice. And yes, I will seek a therapist as soon as I am able. Unfortunately, disposable income often seems to be a necessary factor. Summary: my boyfriend and I have completely opposite interests. While this worked for a while, circumstances have changed, and I can no longer keep pretending that our compromises are acceptable. However, I genuinely want to change because he deserves a partner who can engage in the activities he loves in exchange for all that he does for me. I continue to grapple with self-esteem issues.